To speak to you on International Women's Day. And I feel very honored to have been asked, as I know that marking International Women's Day, as Sandra has said, and by having a speaker event, was something that Deirdre started. So I hope that I can do justice to her initiative and to her memory. I started to prepare first of all, thank you, Sandra, for all the lovely things you said about me. I started to prepare the talk, and I thought I'd begin by saying a few words about International Women's Day. So I had a look at their website. It was all good stuff, but nothing really resonated with me. So then I had a look at the Wizo website, and I was hooked. How did I not know about all the wonderful work that Wizo does? I spent a long time reading the website and marveled at all the good work that has been running since the days of the British Mandate for Palestine. Now, I realize that most people here will know a lot about Wizo, so I'll just mention one last thing, and that's your slogan: changing lives, building futures, and how a young man's life was changed by Wizo, and how in turn he changed my life. The young man's name is Nissan Ayalon, and when he and I were texting a few years ago, I told him that Sammy and I were giving a talk to Wizo the following week, and I want to read you his reply. I grew up in a boarding school founded 90 years ago by Wizo and partially funded by them to this day. This place saved me from getting to the streets because of my background. I was embraced, educated, and loved. I am forever grateful to them and have been in touch with many of my teachers and carers. So Nissan came to Glasgow to sell Dead Sea products in shopping malls in Scotland. He was eventually hounded out of every outlet by the Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And one day Sammy and I went to Braehead to stand with Nissan and offer him some support. And I saw a man walking away from the stall laden with bags of products. So I walked over to him and I said, "Are these early Christmas presents that you're buying?" And he said, "No, I collected money from everybody in our church, and our church in Dumfries has a heart for Israel." So a while after that, Sammy and I were at a meeting in Newton Shul, a community meeting, and a man stood up and asked a question. And I said, "Sammy, that's the man we saw at Nissan's stall." So afterwards, when we were having tea, I went over and spoke to him, and he told me that his name was Nigel Goodrich. He'd come up specially for this meeting. I should have had a glass of water, actually. But no, it's all right.
She'll get you one.
All right, thanks. He came up specially for this meeting. And so we had a chat, and I said to him, "You live in Dumfries, are you staying overnight in Glasgow?" And he said no, he'd be driving back to Dumfries. And I said, "Well, how long is that going to take you?" I mean, it was a very snowy night. And he said, "Probably a couple of hours, but maybe longer because the weather is so bad." So I said, "You know what? I want you to come back and stay with us." And it's not often that you would meet almost a stranger and invite him back to stay. Thanks. Anyway, so Nigel, we became friendly with Nigel, and he told us he wanted to start Friends of Israel groups throughout Scotland. So the first one, because he lived in Dumfries, the first group was Dumfries and Galloway Friends of Israel. And he decided to have a conference to start it, an inaugural conference, so that people could meet, they could get together, and they could support Israel through Dumfries and Galloway Friends of Israel. And the second one he started was Edinburgh Friends of Israel, and we had a fantastic conference there. 200 people came along. And he was sitting with Sammy and I one day at home, and he said, "Do you fancy starting a Glasgow Friends of Israel?" I thought this was a great idea. So we then had a Glasgow conference at the city halls in Candleridge. And that was really the start of what we did. So during that conference, Nigel, he organized the whole thing. He invited interesting speakers, and he had breakout sessions. So that's when people went to various meeting rooms, and somebody led the group, and they explained what they were doing. So this particular lady, Judy Welleminski, came from London, and she spoke about street advocacy stalls, advocating for Israel. And I knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. So that was almost 9 years ago now. It'll be the stall's 9th birthday in July. And we've been on Buchanan Street with the stall every Saturday since then. So this, I don't know if you can see it, a bit difficult to see it.
Maybe if we
Is that better?
Yep.
Oh, I hope I can read this. So this was the leaflet that Judy had, and it's the one that we still use to this day. So you'll see in the front, there's like a drawing of a dove holding an olive branch with a Palestinian flag and the Magen David from the Israeli flag inside of that. And Judy's slogan, and now our slogan, is pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian, pro-peace. And the leaflet says, for there to be true peace, Israelis and Palestinians need to promote each other's welfare. And we work to provide information, challenge misunderstanding, combat intimidation, hatred, violence, and delegitimization, bring Jews, Christians, Muslims, and others together in pursuit of peace. And on the other side of the leaflet, where in the Middle East can you find women's rights, gay rights, democracy, freedom of religion, free press, independent judiciary, and equal pay for men and women? And then it says Tiny Israel. And there's a map of the area, and there's a tiny, tiny little bit of blue, and that's pointing to Israel. So this is tiny Israel surrounded by all the Islamic states in the Middle East. And people who come to the stall think Israel is enormous. I mean, it's a world superpower after all. And they cannot believe that it's such a tiny country. Put that down. So where are we? So Glasgow Friends of Israel was established in 2015, and this was the year after the Gaza war, another Gaza war, and that was due to extreme negative media bias against Israel following the 2014 Gaza conflict and the flag flying incident in Glasgow. Now this is when Glasgow City Chambers flew the Palestinian flag on the city chambers and in support of the Palestinian people. Now this really upset a lot of people, and there was a delegation that went from the Jewish communities, and it was taken down, thank goodness. Sorry, I'm just, I've lost there. So, right, Glasgow Friends of Israel is one of 10 Friends of Israel groups in Scotland. So all the members are of all religions and none. And we advocate for peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. Okay, so I'm saying that now the stall, the Glasgow Friends of Israel Facebook pages, and the GFI speaker events have taken over my life since then. So this is a photograph of our shed. So a typical Saturday, Sammy and I load up the car from the shed, and we had this shed built a few years ago. especially for all the GFI paraphernalia that we've amassed over the years, which eventually took over our home and became far too much to keep in the house. You wouldn't believe the amount of paraphernalia we have to take with us every week. The gazebo, boxes of gazebo weights, a table, large banners and flags, a box full of leaflets and booklets to hand out to the public, a box filled with lots of other things that I think we might need but usually don't, and of course a large tin of assorted chocolate biscuits, and always an ample supply of Israeli medjool dates. But we can't carry these things by hand, so we load up the 3 trolleys that we also have in the car, meet the volunteers that are there for the day, and make our way in convoy from where Sammy has parked the car to Buchanan Street. So it takes us a good 15 minutes or longer to set up the stall. And that's probably because I'm particular about the way it looks. The banners have to be placed exactly correctly, which means being equidistant from the front and back gazebo legs, and the flags likewise. So, and then when it comes to placing the reading material, that's one side of the stall, and this is the other side with the banners. Free Gaza from Hamas is the one that most people talk about, especially today. So when it comes to placing the reading material on the table, I like to have them in a certain order. Booklets about anti-Semitism have to go there, and the ones about Hamas just there, and how many times the Palestinians have refused to sit down at the negotiating table, just they go over there, and then the Magen David Adom collecting box, my notebook and pens. Everything has a place, and everything should be in its place. And it's a nightmare. And I mean for the poor volunteers who just want to help, and I just want them to leave me to it. Our friend David Goldberg is a stalwart. He's with us every single week, unless he's in London visiting family. He keeps well clear of me setting up, picks up a handful of leaflets, and with his usual cheery, "We leaflet anyone?" stands on the street waiting for customers. And they come, week after week, more and more visitors to the stall, and almost without exception, everyone is supportive. Some people want to know more about the conflict. This is a photograph of people standing in front of our stall. So they want to know about the conflict, how it started, how we think it'll end, and they ask about a whole variety of things. But we find that over the years, and especially since the 7th of October, visitors to the stall just want to come and stand in solidarity with us. They want to offer their support, and they want to tell us how the Hamas atrocities have affected them. So we've made countless new friends who come along every week, and our old friends in Buchanan Street still come to see us on a regular basis. There's William, a wee quiet old guy who shuffles up to the stall, waiting to speak just to me. He loves Israel and has come to the stall for years. He takes handful of leaflets, and he leaves them on bus seats and in between the pages of books in his local library. He was quite concerned the last time, as being an ardent yes voter. He read some very anti-Israel articles in The National, which he brought for me to have a look at. The National is the SNP supporting newspaper, if you can call it a newspaper. William is now re-evaluating his political allegiance, but it doesn't leave him much choice if he wants independence. Someone else who's politically homeless, but that's a discussion for another day. And Tommy, who I hadn't seen for months, came to see me with a big bunch of flowers and a huge bear hug. He asked how I was, and said that if he was 30 years younger and I was waiting for it, I'd run away with you. But he said I'd be in Israel fighting for the country, which is much better anyway. And Margaret, a very elderly lady who lives off the high street and walks with a Zimmer. She doesn't get out much, but has come to our stall a few times. She used to have a stall at Paddy's Market and would walk across the river to the Gorbals to buy food from the Jewish shops. She's not Jewish, but had Jewish friends and loves the Jewish people and Israel. One day she came with a handful of banknotes, which she thrust into my hand and wouldn't let me have a look to see how much there was. She told me that she did not want her relatives to have her money when she died, and this was for us. When she left, I discovered she'd given me £100, and sadly I haven't seen her since to thank her properly. So you can see me here looking like the Michelin woman with 10 layers of clothes on as usual in the freezing cold, and I'm holding the Magen David Adom collecting box. Unfortunately, it was stolen one day from the table in the stall, so now I always carry it when I'm walking around. So Alan, who started with GFI being Glasgow Friends of Israel, he used to come to the stall all the time, but he hadn't been for years because he suffers from ill health. He pushed himself to come into town when he heard I was collecting donations for the IDF after 7/10, and he handed us an envelope with £500 in it. And others who come week after week to give us donations, large and small, for Magen David Adom, who we always collect for, and the other initiatives that I started to collect essential items for Israeli soldiers. I always ask when people donate, where do you want the money to go to? And I tell them the different options that they have, but more often than not they say, for the soldiers, which is absolutely wonderful. So, sorry, I'll be with you in a second. So the words we hear most often from visitors are, we are the silent majority. And they also often ask the question, after hearing about Hamas and the inflated figures that Hamas give all the time, and hearing about Gaza on the news, and they also say to us, who do they think started this war? So some are very passionate in their condemnation of Palestinian terrorism, Hamas, the UN, and the BBC. Most know exactly what's happening day to day in Israel, and if the conversation gets round to Bibi Netanyahu, which it often does, they are, let's say, not supportive. And all Israelis we meet, without exception, say it's time for him to go. The GFI stall is without any doubt the busiest place on Buchanan Street. There are 2 Israel hater stalls also on the street most weeks, with huge Palestinian flags and banners saying, Israel is the world's terrorist state, and one showing a series of maps that show the land that they say Israel has stolen from the Palestinians over the decades. They give out leaflets as we do, but when we talk about peace, they only talk of hatred. Oh, it's there. Okay, sorry. I was going to say to you, Sammy, next slide, but you're there. While the majority of conversations we have with the public are friendly and supportive, there are obviously some who want to come and argue with us, which of course is fine. It's wonderful to speak to people who agree with us, but we're very happy to speak to people who don't, which is in stark contrast to the Israel haters who scream abuse at anyone who disagrees with their narrative. So there's a stall down the street from us, and run by a couple called Margaret and John Pachetta. Now, they always say, they can't stand us. They talk about us in social media endlessly, and they spend their entire time on our Facebook page, although they say they don't. So they said they don't have anything to do with Glasgow Friends of Israel, but meanwhile, they printed this rather long leaflet, Street Deceit. Friends of Israel are not pro-Palestinian. And as you can see, they have our banner there. So they say things like, Friends of Israel claim to support a two-state solution, yet say nothing about Israel's relentless refusal to engage in meaningful negotiations, end the occupation, cease settlement expansion, relinquish stolen land, etc. So they say, Friends of Israel's multiple evasions on Palestinian rights and cynical appropriation of pro-Palestinian. Now, we don't say pro-Palestine, pro-peace, we say pro-Palestinian, because there is not a place called Palestine. There is not a Palestinian state yet. We hope there will be one day, but at the moment there isn't. So these guys don't like that. They like to say when the Palestinians live in Palestine, and that's their land, and there should be a right of return, and so that's what this leaflet is all about. So they talk about the illegal occupation, brutal aggression, apartheid violations, human rights, etc. So I think we said enough about that. So I could go on for hours about the wonderful visitors to our stall. The tourists from all over the world, the Glaswegians, the university students, and of course Israelis who can't believe they're looking at a stall that advocates for Israel in the center of Glasgow. They take photos to send to their family and friends at home, and thank goodness we have one Hebrew speaker at the stall. And Sammy's kept very busy, especially in the summertime when the cruise ships dock in Greenock. Rachel, our friendly Israeli tour guide, always brings them to Buchanan Street to talk to us. Now, our stall couldn't function properly without our wonderful volunteers. We start our day with David, Edward, Sammy's brother Tommy, and Sammy and I, and then people start to join us. Walter Hecht, Dave, previously known as Norton, and others, and also many, many non-Jewish volunteers. We constantly tell people that ours is not a Jewish stall, a popular misconception. We have people of all faiths and none, and also some Bible-believing Christians. They are passionate in their love of Israel and very knowledgeable too. We also have our regulars who come from Garnet Hill after the service every week. So sometimes we can have 12 or more volunteers at the stall, all having a brilliant time chatting to visitors. You know Myrna, don't you? You've been there. Chat to visitors, chatting with each other. It's like a big family get-together every Saturday, except there are no family squabbles. We get along so well, and we all love our day on Buchanan Street. We pack up and go home at 3. And although it's tough, I've learned over the years to let the volunteers pack up the stall. Everyone really wants to help, so while I'm silently saying, why would you want to put the flags in that box and not in that one, which is the obvious place? I'm actually very grateful for all the help we get from our lovely volunteers. A few of them go for coffee together afterwards, and Sammy and I go home, unpack the car, put everything away in the shed, and then we have a cup of coffee, and I sit down at the computer and start to write the post from our Facebook page. You know that, don't you, Colleen? You look forward to it every week. So I take notes during the day, and I can always be seen with a notebook at the stall. So I walk around when people speak to visitors, and after the visitor's gone away, I say, okay, Walter, what was that conversation about? What did he say? No, I want to know exactly what he said. Because, no, seriously, if I'm not exact, then people have come onto the page afterwards and said, I didn't say that. So I have to be very sure what it's about. So I go home, as I say, with page after page of scrolled notes, and then ready to report. So it takes me a good couple of hours every Saturday to complete the post, along with the photos that we've taken during the day. Now this is a task I do not take lightly because it means so much to so many people. And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm bragging, because I don't mean it to. So I'm going to read you a few of the comments we get from people all over the world who come onto our GFI page and comment on the post. Although I try not to, I end up reading and watching depressing, one-sided reports about the situation in both Israel and Gaza over the week. Thank goodness for a Sunday when I can read the GFI report, which informs me that we do have many friends and supporters out there. It makes my week so much better. Keep going, guys. You are amazing. And another one, I wish there were more groups like yours in the USA. Sometimes I feel we're very much alone here, especially at colleges and universities. Shekoach to you. And another one, thank you for another uplifting update. After all the hate and threats of violence over the past week, and Parliament being practically held siege by the violent baying mob, it's good to see the decent, silent majority make their voices heard. Watching from Sydney, Australia, and not afraid to say it, keep up the good work for Israel. And one from Israel, that was so nice to read today, especially as things here in Israel are somewhat less than wonderful. Soldiers are killed daily, and armed terrorists attack drivers in traffic jams. Even the Eurovision want to disqualify us. I send my love and admiration to you and all your helpers and supporters. Another one, such an uplifting post. As a Brit watching from Israel, it's so wonderful to see so many are standing with us and not afraid to say. And one last one, thank you. After the awful Galloway one in Rochdale, spewing his bile, hate, and sowing division on top of the awful scenes outside Parliament last week, it's easy to get very despondent. However, after reading your lovely updates, it really restores faith in humanity and gives such reassurance that there are still many good people out there. Your work and your postings are more valuable than ever in these difficult times. So I actually get quite emotional when I read some of the comments. And I believe that taking time to write the weekly post is one of the most important things that I can do. Right, I can't actually read those, but okay. So I was fed up looking at people with Palestinian flags walking up and down Buchanan Street. So I decided to have some Israeli flag ones made. And I knew that I had to get these made by somebody who was pro-Israel, because we had a bit of an issue with companies who I bought Israeli Scotland flag badges from. The badges are sold to a small card, and the warehouse picker, who we discovered was an Israel hater, took a pen and wrote a nasty anti-Israel comment on the back of each badge. You can't, unfortunately, see them there. What did they say? Shame on you, Viva Palestina, genocide supporters, stop the genocide, those sort of things. So luckily I noticed them and managed to slice off that little bit before we sold them. So, okay, so after that, I was afraid that if I had umbrellas made, the manufacturer might decide to sabotage the order. So I asked on our Glasgow Friends of Israel private page, we have two pages, one that's open to the public, that I put the posts on, and the other is a private page, and if you want to leave me your emails, I can add you to it. And we now have over 1,000 members on that page, which is great. So I asked if anybody could put me in touch with a friendly company. So somebody did, a few people actually got back to me, and somebody said that she put me in touch with somebody called Lorraine, who's married to Jonathan Sarsby from Glasgow. I don't know if anybody knows Jonathan. Do you know Jonathan? Yeah. So she has a promotions company in London. And together we designed the umbrellas that you can see in the pictures. So it's an 8-panel, windproof golf umbrella, 4 panels in Israeli flag blue, and 4 white panels that have a Magen David and the words Am Israel Chai. I thought that people might be afraid to use them, but I was wrong. So I sold 30 of them very quickly, and I'm now waiting for the next ones to arrive, which I think will be on about the 19th of this month. So incidentally, I use mine all the time, and I've never had as much as a sideways glance. I saw this photo of Montana Tucker. I had no idea who she was, but she's apparently an actress and an influencer. Well, she influenced me, and she's the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. So when she was at the Grammys, she had this dress with a big yellow Bring Them Home ribbon on the front of it. So I got straight on to Lorraine in London and ordered 100 yellow ribbons with the words Bring Them Home. And that was followed by a repeat order of 150, and are soon finished. And so I've got an order of 250 arriving tomorrow. So I've left some on the tables, but very few. And if anybody would like a ribbon, please let me know, and I'll make sure they get them in the new order. So I posted about them on Facebook, and I sent dozens of them to people all over Scotland and England through the post, and the same with the umbrellas. So one email I received after sending ribbons to a lady: got the ribbons, thank you so much. When I opened the envelope, I cried. I pray for our people and the IDF every day, praying Hashem works soon. So we always have ribbons to give away at the stall, along with these I Stand With Israel badges that Stand With Us UK sent us from London. Since October the 7th, we've given away almost 200 of these badges. People really do want to show their support for Israel and for the hostages, and they're not intimidated or afraid to show people how they feel. But it's not all sweetness and light at the stall, and I want to show you photos of the marches and demonstrations that take place in Glasgow. Now this first one is actually quite funny. It says, "Don't run with genocide." Now the World Indoor Athletics Championships were held last weekend.
In Glasgow.
In Glasgow, yes, in Glasgow. And Israel didn't send a team. There wasn't an Israeli team. But that didn't matter. These guys had already got their posters and their banners. So what they decided to do was to go down to the Radisson Blu Hotel in Glasgow, which is where all all the people were registering that were taking part. So they wanted to make their feelings known. They were annoyed with the organizers because the organizers hadn't actually banned Israel. Israel had decided not to send a team. But can you imagine going on a march for a team that wasn't even there? So, okay, that's that one. So this is the Palestinian Gaza demo this weekend. Every weekend they have rallies and they have marches, and this one is run by these are run by the Gaza Genocide Emergency Committee. Now, this is a group of these Israel haters that have got together, and they organize weekly rallies more than once a week, or demonstrations or marches. hate marches, actually. I get told off by some people for calling them hate marches, but Suella Braverman was right. They are hate marches. So, and actually people who come to the stall, they tell us they've had enough. They've had enough. They're sick of these marches. They disrupt life in Glasgow. People can't drive their cars because of the people. And in fact, they're very much against them. Now, you see, this is a typical hate march. And the first picture shows an angry man being arrested by the police. And the other one is actually quite difficult to see. But there's a man wearing black in the middle, and we've got a number of photographs of him. He's screaming and shouting, and it took 6 police officers to arrest him. Okay. Now these, can you see them properly? We have a journalist friend, and he calls these people the G12 useful idiots. Now, I hope nobody lives in G12. I think it's the Hindland area. But apparently he said there's a big bunch of lefties there, and they come out and demonstrate for these things, although they have no idea what they're demonstrating for. So this is Free Palestine. Weapons made in Glasgow are killing children in Gaza. But the one on the right is the one that always makes us laugh. Jesus was a Palestinian. Okay, so moving on from that one. So this isn't funny. These are young children learning to hate. And from the very first demo or march that we saw in Glasgow, they had women with babies and slings on their back, women with pushchairs pushing their babies, and crowds of people shouting and screaming abuse about Israel, screaming through megaphones, and now they have these children. If you see the one on the bottom there, they've got the kafirs wrapped around their faces. It's awful, terrible what they do to their children. And this one sitting on Buchanan steps with the flag, "Enough is enough, end the slaughter." And this one here, "I go to school, you go to war," and this tiny wee thing with a megaphone shouting abuse. So it's all a bit upsetting that they do this. So last weekend, as you remember, we had a rally against anti-Semitism. I don't know if you were reading about the rallies in London and in Manchester, where they had thousands of people that turned up. So I got in touch with the main organizer, who was Reverend Haley Ace, from Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism. And I said I thought it was about time we had one in Glasgow. And she completely agreed. So we had a wonderful, I don't know how many of you went to the rally, but I know quite a few did. And we were discussing it earlier. It's difficult to say how many people were there, but there were, I think she said about 380 odds registered, but a whole lot more just turned up. People came to our stall and said, "Look, I haven't registered." And I said, "Don't worry about it, just come along." So there could have been around 400. I don't know, Myrna, you were there. It's difficult to tell.
400.
About 400. And the police couldn't tell us accurately either. Yeah. So, at this rally, it was wonderful. It was Christian people in support of Jewish people. No screaming megaphones, no genocidal chants, no Israel kills Palestinian children or free Palestine. It was just love and support for the Jewish people. It was wonderful. Now, I want to end by saying that the umbrellas are arriving on March the 19th. If anybody would like to order one, please do. Give me your name afterwards and I'll keep one for you. And there are a few ribbons on the table, but I'm afraid I don't have any more until tomorrow. So if anybody would like some ribbons, let me know. Give me your email or let me know where you live and we can get them to you. And if you'd like to be added to our mailing list, please let me have a note of your emails. So the next GFI event is on the 20th of March. Daniel Berger, who's the CEO of Magen David Adom UK, in fact, invited himself to Glasgow. He loves coming to Glasgow. So we're having a meeting at Giffnut Newton Murren Shul at 7 o'clock. So he's got plenty to tell us about Israel, and he's just there at the moment with a whole group of people on a legacy mission. And he was hosted by Michal Herzog, the First Lady. So he'll have plenty to tell us about what's happening on the ground in Israel with Magen David Adom. So finally, please come into town to our stall. Please come and stand with us if you're doing nothing on a Saturday. It's really great. I know that people say they're afraid to come in, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Really, there's a whole bunch of us there. We stand together in solidarity, and you'll love it. You'll love meeting the people that come to the stall. It's interesting, it's a great day, and if Myrna happens to be there, there will be ginger cake. So I don't know if there's time for questions, but if there are, perhaps Sammy and I can answer them. If it's dates of UN resolutions and things, I'm afraid I haven't got a clue. You'll have to ask Sammy. But, okay.
Just let me get our presenter to shut up. Any questions from anyone on the floor? Anyone like to know anything else? Any future plans?
Okay, can I ask you a very practical question?
Oh, yes.
How do you get your financial support? Who supports you? Because I've never seen anything asking for donations to your organisation.
Well, we do have from community groups, etc. They're very generous and they give us donations. But at the moment, we haven't up till now needed anything for a while, because every year we used to have a conference, as you know, and that was very expensive to run. So we always got a very generous donation for that. But and also some people that come to the street do want us to want to give us donations, and they also come along, which is very nice, with cards from Starbucks and various other places for coffees at the store. Yeah, and it's so nice.
But there are people in the community who donate to us. Sorry, okay. Can you see me now? There are people in the community who donate to us privately and quietly every year. And if anybody would like to do that, it would be, be wonderful if you did. And I can tell you how to do that. But we are luckily supported, and it's mostly the community that does it. It's funny. There's different culture between Jewish people and non-Jewish people, and it's mostly people from the Jewish community that keep us going. And they say things like, "I'm afraid to go on the streets. I'll give you money so you can do it." But it's great, and really, as Vicki said, we've never really had any real trouble, and it's nice to have visitors at the stall if you can come.
Right, Sam, thank you for that. Another question.
Thank you very much, Vicki, for a very
Stand up so we can see you.
interesting and informative talk. I wondered if anybody in the media has shown an interest to have you, because you speak so nicely.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
And if not, maybe you could approach somebody in the media.
Well, no, I tell you, the media man is Sammy. Sammy speaks all the time. If anybody wants to know if anything's going on, then we get phone calls all the time from the media. So Sammy knows all the press now. And also in the newspapers, Sammy writes a lot for the newspapers, the Jewish Telegraph every couple of weeks, the Jewish Chronicle, and for, I don't know, I lose track of he's been on the television as well, so Sammy is our media spokesperson.
I think you can do it too.
Anything else? Wonderful presentation about your past and your present. Much success in the future, and that's a little thank you from us.